Cyberpunk, mainly known by its second edition title Cyberpunk 2020, is a cyberpunk role-playing game written by Mike Pondsmith and published by Talsorian Games in 1988. Because of the release in 1990 of the second edition, set in a fictional 2020, the first edition is often now referred to as Cyberpunk 2013, following the fictional year, 2013, in which the game was set when it was first released in 1988. The third edition, published by Talsorian Games in 2005, is referred to as Cyberpunk V3.0 and is set in the same fictional timeline of all the former editions, but during the fictional 2030s. Overview: this role-playing game is based on the works of William Gibson, Bruce Sterling, and other authors of the Mirror Shades group. The game includes a number of elements now associated with the 1980s, such as the idea of style over substance, and glam rock. The game tends to emphasize some aspects of the source material more than others. Much of the focus of the game is paid to combat, high-tech weaponry and cybernetic modification. However, performance-enhancing and recreational drug use is either played down or discouraged. Although artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, and cloning are barely mentioned in the core rulebook, they are reintroduced in later add-ons such as the Chromebook manuals. The range of characters players can adopt is diverse, ranging from hardwired mercenaries with psycho-linked weapons and boosted reflexes, to Armani-wearing corporate mega-yuppies who make and break national economies with the stroke of a pen. Cyberpunk 2013, Cyberpunk 2020 is the second edition of the original game, Cyberpunk 2013, often just called Cyberpunk. It was originally published as a boxed set in 1988, and Talsorian released a few supplements for this edition, including Rockaboy, Solo of Fortune, and Hardwired, the latter based on the Walter John Williams novel of the same name. Another supplement was Near Orbit. The second edition featured rules updates and changes, and additionally moved the timeline forward by 7 years, to 2020. The game's timeline was also retconned to accommodate the German reunification in 1990. Game mechanics: the basic rules system of Cyberpunk 2020 is skill-based instead of level-based, with players being awarded points to be spent on their skill sets. New skills outside their expertise can be learned, but in-game time needs to be spent on this. A large part of the system is the player character's ability to augment themselves with cyber technology and the ensuing loss of humanity as they become more machine than man. Cyberpunk 2020 claims to lend itself to play in the street-level, dark film noir genre, but certain aspects of the basic system can influence game sessions toward a high body count, 1980s action movie style. Although each player must choose a character class or role from those given in the basic rules, there is enough variation in the skill system so that no two members of the same class are alike. Because Cyberpunk 2020 is skill-based, the choice of skills around the class-specific special ability allows a wide range of character development choices including non-combatants. The combat system, called Friday Night Firefight, emphasizes lethality. Several pages in the rules are devoted to discussing real combat versus the illusions often seen on TV. Attempts are made to keep the combat as realistic as possible in a game setting. No matter who the character is, a single bullet can result in a lethal wound. This encourages a more tactically oriented and thought-out gameplay, which is in accordance to the rough and gritty ethos of the cyberpunk genre. Also, the amount of damage a character can sustain does not increase as the character develops. The only way a character can become more damage-resistant is to either become better at not being hit, physically augment their body with muscle or cybernetics, or wear armor. World: Cyberpunk 2020, as the name implies, takes place in the year 2020. The game's default setting is the fictional Night City, an arcology on the west coast of the United States located between Los Angeles and San Francisco. It is described as being near San Jose, but the map puts it closer to Monterey. Later supplements to the game have contained information about the rest of the US and the world. Following a vast socio-economical collapse and a period of martial law, the United States government has had to rely on several mega corporations to survive. This has given them a veritable carte blanche to operate as they will. Magai Corporations Arazaka, a huge Japanese zaibatsu headed by a megalomaniacal CEO obsessed with making Japan into a superpower. Likely nod to World War II arms manufacturer Arazaka. Biotecnica, an Italian biotechnology, pharmacology, and cybernetics firm. Business Machines, an information technology corporation headquartered in Germany. Infocomp, a commercial think tank and information repository. International Electric Corporation, a European conglomerate involved in multiple and diverse industries ranging from consumer products to heavy construction through to corporate finance and insurance. Kendachi, a Japanese armament company. Lazarus Group, an American private military contracting and private security firm with close ties to Militech. Merrill, Assure Kaga and Finch, financial analysts. Microtech, a computer and electronics manufacturer. Militech, American arms manufacturer and mercenary contractor with strong ties to the U.S. government and its military. Its CEO desires to make the U.S. into a superpower again and often competes with Arazaka for influence. Mitsubishi Shugo, a major transportation manufacturer. Network News 54, an American broadcasting company. Orbital Air, an African corporation with a monopoly on space transportation. Petrochem, an energy company. Raven Microcybernetics, leading cybernetics company. SOV Oil, a neo-Soviet oil giant, controlling a vast percentage of the petrochemicals market. Trauma Team International, a private medical firm also dealing in medical insurance, prepaid disaster relief, prepaid CSAR, etc. Teams extract their patients from hostile landing zones and then evacuate them to an emergency care facility. World News Service, a worldwide news conglomerate, similar to the Associated Press or Fox News Corporation. World Satellite Communications Network, a satellite communications giant. Zetatech, a computer, cyberdeck, robotics, and cybernetics manufacturing company. Roles The Cyberpunk 2020 equivalent of character classes are roles, of which the main rulebook contains 9, and later supplements have expanded the number considerably. Each role has a special ability which gives a character a unique edge. Characters The game's backstory had a series of powerful characters that influenced the world of Cyberpunk. Alt Cunningham, a brilliant netrunner and programmer, she invented the beta version of Soul Killer, a program that would make a digital emulation or copy of a netrunner's mind. Arazaka kidnapped her, extracted the information from her, and made a more deadly version that would simultaneously fry the netrunner's mind after backing it up, allowing a Cysop to interrogate it at will. They then used it on Alt since she was of no further use to them. Her digital ghost broke free into the net, but could not be reunited with her body. Johnny Silverhand, a famous and idealistic rockaboy singer and guitarist with a silver-chrome cyberlime arm. He opposes Arazaka for a grocery list of personal grudges from the loss of his arm to the death of many of his close friends and family. He is Alt's ex-boyfriend. He was in the chromatic rock band Samurai with fellow famous rocker Kerry Eurodyne, and is most famous for the songs Chippin' In, and Never Fade Away. Morgan Blackhand, a pragmatic solo with an anodized black chrome cyberlime arm. Generally considered to be a solo, with years of experience and ops under his belt. Rash Bartmos, the most brilliant hacker in the net, he invented the Hound and Demon series of programs. He was the narrator of the Guide to the Net and Brainware Blowout sourcebooks. Rash finally flatlined in 2021 either by a lucky Cysop or poor health due to repeated bouts of malnutrition and dehydration from surfing the net too long. Fortunately he had top-of-the-line life support to maintain him. Unfortunately, he was too paranoid to trust anyone with his location or leave any means of recovering him. He spent his time deteriorating in a cryogenic freezer while still managing to be one of the best hackers in the net prior to his death in the opening salvos of the Fourth Corporate War. Arazaka Sabura, in this Japanese name, the family name is Arazaka. The devious and extremely aged leader of the diversified Arazaka Corporation, which not only dominates Japan but also most of the Third World. He has united factions of the Japanese government, the military, organized crime and various lesser corporations under his control. Some have begun calling this era in history the Arasaka Shogunate. He was born in 1919, and he has a prosthetic left arm. Expansions and sequels. The Firestorm series. Firestorm was supposed to be the bridge between Cyberpunk 2020 and Cyberpunk V3. Its purpose was to shake up everything and get players prepared for the new background they were cooking up. Firestorm I, Stormfront, set in 2023, the backstory has two deep ocean-based mega corporations dueling for control over a third one. When it escalates into open warfare, they each hire mercenaries. One hires the Japanese diversified technology and security services firm Arasaka and the other hires the American military technology and mercenary services firm Militech. During the conflict, the long-standing bitter rivalry between Arasaka and Militech causes them to forget about their customers and go for each other. In the beginning they feud quietly. But the cover war between the two heats up, becoming the Fourth Corporate War. In the course of the adventure setting, the characters are hired to hunt down a pesky niche runner who is making their anonymous employer unhappy. Little do they realize that the hacker is the infamous Rash Bartmos. Regardless of what they do, their employer pinpoints the apartment with an orbital mass driver and vaporizes it. Firestorm 2, Shockwave, set in 2024, the second part of the Firestorm series sees Arasaka mobilize the Japanese Defense Force to take on Militech and the American military in a series of proxy conflicts. Waves of cyberviruses corrupt databases worldwide, leaving the isolated Arasaka Towers arcology in Night City the last viable data storage mainframe in the world. Militech gathers together the surviving Meta characters and a special forces team played by the player characters into a super team. Their job, to take out Arasaka's Night City arcology with a tactical nuke to deny its assets to Arasaka. Then they find out that Alt Cunningham, who was captured by Arasaka earlier, is trapped inside the mainframe. Of course, Johnny won't let Alt die a second time, so the team tries to break her out. The end result is that the Meta characters go out in a blaze of glory. Johnny Silverhand dies at the hands of Arasaka's cyborg assassin Adam Smasher in order to buy Spider Murphy enough time to break Alt into a series of data packets and downloads her into the net. Morgan Blackhand then takes on Adam Smasher atop Arasaka Towers while the rest of the team gets extracted out. The outcome of the duel is greatly disputed because the low-yield tactical nuke the team deployed sets off the 2-kiloton self-destruct bomb Arasaka had placed in its data core. This destroyed much of downtown Night City and contaminated the ruins and anything downwind of it with lethal fallout. Firestorm 3, Aftershock, the long-awaited third volume. Aftershock promised to tie all the loose ends together and herald the end of the old Cyberpunk 2020 game world and usher in the beginning of the new Cyberpunk 2030 game world. It was later cancelled and its material was folded into the Cyberpunk 203X rules book. Cybergeneration Cybergeneration takes place in an alternate future of the core Cyberpunk 2020 timeline, where a nanotech virus epidemic has resulted in a subgroup of teenagers with unusual, superhuman skills. It began as a supplement that still required the Cyberpunk 2020 rulebook, but the second edition became a standalone game. Cyberpunk 203X Ever since the 1998 release of the Cyberpunk 2020 sourcebook Firestorm, Shockwave, fans of the game had been waiting for a third edition of the Cyberpunk game, known as Cyberpunk 203X. Over the years, the entire project had at times been discounted as vaporware, its delays due to other projects and Pondsmith's involvement in the development of the Matrix Online. The game was released first in PDF form on December 17, 2005 and as a conventional book on January 15, 2006. The setting has been heavily updated from its last event book series, Firestorm, which covered the opening of the Fourth Corporate War. The aftermath of the Fourth Corporate War has resulted in widespread corruption of the net and major losses of hard-copied data, to the point that all data is intangible and recent recorded history is in doubt. An example that pops up in Pondsmith's demos at conventions, releases on the Internet, and in the finished game is that history has become so corrupted that many people in the world now believe Richard Nixon, instead of resigning over Watergate, committed suicide on camera, and that memes such as the moon landing being hoaxed become prevalent. The war has also led to the collapse of nations, the world economy, and many of the staple megacorporations. This civil upheaval leads to the rise of the alt cults, alternative cultures similar in vein to the files from Neal Stephenson's The Diamond Age. In fact, Cyberpunk V3 has more to do with a new post-cyberpunk literary movement and transhumanism than with the Gibbs and Sterling mirror shades movement. In addition to rules changes to the Fusion system and background, Cyberpunk V3 also uses concepts taken from Pondsmith's experience at Microsoft with computer and video games as well as corporate culture, such as a simpler character generation system using templates, web-based active content URL links for updates, and making groups, organizations, and corporations their own characters. The alt cults, Corpore Metal, a society of full-body cyborgs that use live Emitalton technology, where a modular braincase unit is inserted into a variety of purpose-built body frames. Disney World-like series of amusement park arcologies that strive to shelter themselves from the anarchy outside their walls. It is run heavily on automation and uses telepresence piloted drones for travel, security, maintenance, labor, etc. Edgerunners, the descendants of the anti-corporation cyberpunk movement. Integral cyberlimbs are replaced by neo-cyber technology, in which detachable articulated frames called bracers worn over the body can be modified to perform all the functions of dedicated cyber technology. Reef, an undersea community whose members are heavily genetically modified to adapt and survive in the depths of the ocean. Riptide Confederation, a fleet of Japanese floating arcologies that were cut off from their country following a nuclear civil war. They use bioengineering to make living tools to aid them. Rolling State, the descendants of the nomad families in Cyberpunk 2020, who now use advanced nanotechnology and megatechnology to create land-based mobile cities. In addition, there is also the Fallen Angels, space-bound scavengers, the Ghosts, people who have uploaded their minds, and the Neo-Core, the surviving corporations of the Cyberpunk 2020 world that are now organized in the form of organized crime syndicates. However, the six listed above are the only ones that have been mentioned in deep detail. Other media. Novels. 2 Cyberpunk 2020 novels have been published, both written by Stephen Billiers, The Ravengers, Hollow Men. Collectible card games. 2 different, independent collectible card games have been licensed and produced based on the cyberpunk setting. The first, called Netrunner, was designed by Richard Garfield, and released by Wizards of the Coast in 1996. The second was called Cyberpunk CCG, released in 2003, designed by Peter Wax and published by Social Games. Video game. CD Projekt Red, the developers of the Witcher series, announced on their 2012 summer conference that they were working on a non-linear RPG based on Cyberpunk 2020. The game is now known as Cyberpunk 2077. References: Michael Pondsmith. Cyberpunk, the role-playing game of the dark future. Talsorian Games, Incorporated. ISBN 0-937279-13-7. Will Moss. Mike Pondsmith. Lisa Pondsmith. Cyberpunk V3.0. R. Talsorian. ISBN 1-891933-03-5. External links: Cyberpunk 2020 at Talsorian Games, Cyberpunk 2020 review at rpg.net.